Howdy, BHRCers. You can find every episode of Why People on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcast content. On this episode of Why People, episode number 37, we'll talk to Sandhiya Vignesh, the Senior HR Business Partner at Apexon. Sandhiya is a great friend and has an amazing background and is doing some of the most inspirational and fascinating work in technology and HR that I've ever been a part of. So really excited and stay tuned. Hello, Why People audience. My name is Sean Glavin. I am the host of Why People and the founder of the Boston HR Council. Why People is a BHRC production. And for those folks not familiar with the BHRC, new listeners, the BHRC is the largest HR and people executive community in the world with over 1,500 council members now. I am thrilled to be the host of this podcast for reasons like this. I get to have a long-form conversation with a really good friend of mine, Sandhiya Vignesh. Sandhiya and I met. It seems like we were chatting on the pre-call. It seems silly that it was just over 2 years ago. It seems like it's been a lot longer than that because we've done a lot of really cool things together. But we met in New Jersey, which is where Sandhiya is located. We got really chatting, and I've just been fascinated with her work in the AI, the GenAI and HR space. Sandhiya was a speaker on the Boston HR Council virtual event last August, where she talked for 200 HR practitioners, basically about how to use and execute Gen AI on a budget and in real time to help support the HR function. And she talked all about the work that she was doing. Such a well-attended and an event that got such great feedback that Sandhiya won the Boston HR Council Speaker of the Year last year, which was awarded earlier this year. So she's also won a bunch of awards for being pretty awesome. HR Professional of the Year from Stevie. So I'm just really excited. And Sandhiya, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's so nice to be here and talking about some of my passionate topic, right?
Yeah.
Not AI, but also on most important thing, people, right? So that brings me here. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I go back, Sandhiya, to the first time we got together. We were in a Starbucks in New Jersey, and it was a Saturday. It was a Saturday morning. You were on your way to soccer practice for your child, and you stopped in because I was on a business trip out there, and you had a little bit of time, right? And we got chatting, and I didn't. I at that time I only knew that you were very you were very great. You were great with technology, right? That's how I knew you. I said, gee, Sandhiya is someone who's always on the kind of the leading edge of technology specific to HR, and I always thought it was cool that the spirit of that work was always so you could do better work for serving the folks that were kind of in your charge. I thought that was really cool. But then as we got chatting at that Starbucks, what really came out, I had my remarkable and I took a bunch of notes, but it was really your fascination with not only the technology, right, Gen AI and HR, not only helping people with it, but what I walked away with was, wow, Sandhiya is the best person I've met in this, and what her passion is sharing it with others, right? Like helping other folks be able to use these type of tools to be better, more efficient at what they do, and create a different experience for folks. So I'm excited to talk about that today. And I know I'm jumping ahead, but Sandhiya, we really kind of we take the same kind of framework here on the conversation. We love hearing about people's background, how they grew up, how they kind of got into HR and people. We then talk about that part, right, of their career, right, how they got to where they are. And then we talk about the future. And I talked to you on the pre-call. I promise I'm not going to shrink the first two, but because the future and the technology piece is so much about what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to make sure we spend enough time there. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about Sandhiya, how you grew up, and kind of what led you into the world of helping people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean. So if someone would have believed that who comes from India from a village and coming back here and thinking that I would have done everything is something magical. Right? And going back to our meeting on Starbucks, that's the first day that I realized technology did not work for me and I need to have my listening ears. So I'm so used to seeing the map and driving, right? And that day my maps did not work to see, but I had to listen to the entire way of 1 hour. And that's exactly what I was doing my entire early years, right? Resilience wasn't a choice for me. It was a way to lead life. My early years was sports and education that led me to say, you have a setback, come back soon. And you know how to lead, you know how to compete, and you know the competition stays on the ground, and we are collaborators across. And that is my starting point. And now I call myself an almost tech HR, not because I, someone, I'm not someone who started in AI, right? But I feel that I was someone who started asking better people questions. And then that led me to be a better technology person. And today I'm here to share those messy moments, right? And those moments of truth and those mindset shifts that I had, which helped me lead, grow, and amplifying my journey. Sean.
It's I'm excited for the conversation, Cynthia. And one of the notes that I have down is, so we've been friends for over 2 years now. We've got together a few times. We've been on a gazillion Zooms. I've never heard you say I've never really heard you talk in the negative. Your personality, and it resonates with me because I get sometimes criticized for being, an eternal optimist, right? I'm just always, we'll figure it out. Like, what's the next step, right? I've never heard you actually say really anything negative, but also because I'm not an HR person, right? I have a background in finance and in education. I consider myself like someone that's got to sit shotgun on this HR executive ride. It's a really hard job, right? And it's the function's getting wider and wider, and it's challenging, and there's everyone's working on so many different things and so many different facets of the function. It's easy to be negative, right? It's easy to slump your shoulders. It's like, so much to do. I've never really heard you I've never heard you talk like that, Sandia, which I think is really cool. Let me ask you this. If you could maybe tell the audience a little bit about, and I love the sports background, at what point did you find yourself in a jar? Or I guess maybe to flip that question upside down and maybe frame it better, um, at what point did you look around and say, I'm doing HR work?
So great. So I want to be an astrophysicist, Sean. So that was my passion. So I'm a grad in physics, and then I decided, so there's a very prestigious college called Indian Institute of Technology in India. I want to get into an astrophysicist as there, and I go ahead. I start writing my entrance. The person before me and after me passed, and I failed. So and then I decided, oh, what next? And then we were a group of friends, and then we said, hey, we are going to apply for something called HR. I'm like, okay, fine, let me apply. What big deal? I'll get into a college. So that's exactly how I got into. So it was not a decision of a moment to say, I want to be here, right? But where does this optimism comes from, right? The optimism comes from in multiple things. I think sports played a major role in my life. Optimism comes from, we will win it. We're going to try all our best to win it. And if someone comes and says, you're going to be a substitute today and not a main five, you take that and say what you can do to help the main five that day, right? So that's the early resilience and early education that helped me. Then my managers, especially my early years. So I was working in an organization called Tata Consultancy Services in my early years. And that typically changed a lot of ways that I think. And I've had brilliant managers, and a couple of them are the same way that you are talking about. You go, you ask them, there is never a negativity that comes out of. So what happens here is, right, I've recently read a positioning of a person talking about what masters does grad choose now in this AI world, right? They were talking about two things: masters in clarity and masters in curiosity. If I was a person who was shutting down other person to not help, other person to not grow, and not able to think that there are multiple ways to get things done, and there are multiple ways to get achieving this particular thing, right? I'm shutting down a clarity. I'm also shutting down a curiosity in a person, which I didn't want to do. And I think that became a ground even for an AI.
So it's funny. I don't mean to poke fun at you, Sandhya, but it's something I've had on a few podcasts before, where I'm talking to somebody that I think is brilliant, right? And that I'm really amazed at the things that they're doing, and then come to find out, um, oh, you have an undergrad in physics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That tracks. That tracks a little bit, right? Um, but that's really neat. And so let me ask you one more question, kind of on this, what I would call the past part, right? And then we'll jump into the career part, the present part. You said because you failed the test and didn't get into something you wanted to get into, that that HR was something that you said, "Hey, okay, I'll give that a shot." How much did you know about HR at the time? And I'll put myself first here. One of my best friends in college football teammates was a human resources management major in college. This is going back, too far back, right? Um, and I remember walking to practice one day. We were talking about, hey, how's school going or whatever. And he said human resources management. And I said, what does that even mean? I didn't even know what those three words together meant at the time. So tell us, what did you know about HR at the time that you decided to go in that direction?
So this is like me attending my group discussion or the question during the interview of my HR selection to the course, right? But to be very honest, the entrance exam I paid was 1,000 rupees. It could be a few dollars, but the HR fees back then, the entrance, the application form was just a few hundreds. And my background demanded me choose a few hundred and don't lose more thousands now, and then get onto it. So that's how I started, and getting to understand what more, right? Because it was too much from a physics to a complete looking at a business area. We were all talking about a lot of terms. So I diligently went ahead and started reading. There is a newspaper called Economic Times in the morning, which comes in there. So I want to learn about the financial metrics, because every time someone comes and talks, they're so in the assumption that, oh, you might not know about the contribution margin, you might not know about the net margin, you might not know about whatever, right? So then that's how it started, the curiosity of learning. And that's when I realized HR is not about the resources of the resources, the human of the human, but it's also the business of the human. So we are in both the areas to look at. So you need to understand this to get this here. So the context mattered more. And when I love to know that the context mattered more, I love this to say I'm getting to know empathy with intelligence. So that's how I started to like it more.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really neat. It's neat to hear, um, kind of two sides of the coin, right? People in business, business and people. They're so interconnected. One can't happen without the other, right? It's neat. Well, okay, so fascinating background. And I know we went quick because I know there's more nuance, but it's really cool. Build this bridge now from that point into your HR career. Give us a little bit of a summary of how it went, how you made some decisions, lessons learned, any of that fun stuff. But help coach us on Sandhia's kind of HR journey career wise.
It's great, right? So it makes me reflect my overall 15 years of journey. And I'm not talking about AI now. I'm talking about not the tools, right? I'm not talking about, hey, you know what, I use tools, but I started using a lot of questions. Why are we still doing this in every role that I started? Who are we leaving behind? And I've seen managers grappling with systems that we have come through, processes that we have come through, establishing that to see. what if AI could amplify the empathy portion of it more than the efficiency, right? Putting that in view is my starting point of a journey called design thinking that I did close to about 10, 11 years back. So we were a group of individuals who got trained early on before design thinking itself was a complete promo, right? Everywhere we were all talking about. So we went in depth, understood. So that's the starting point of technology. And that's where I was figuring out every role that I was doing. We have gone the over indexing of saying that AI is going to replace us. AI is going to replace us to under indexing the fact that it's not into true value. We are still not finding the true value, right? But we need to find somewhere in the middle. And that's exactly where I'm living now to find. It's going to be expert led. It's going to be human led. It's going to be context led. And the middle ground where the AI is informed by us, right? So this is where I've gone through the journey of leading digital transformations across continents. I would not say I was successful completely. I've had multiple failures. I've gone through designing a complete product thinking this is going to be an amazing thing for all my people, and that's exactly when GDPR got released, and I was put before the GPOs of the world and said that, you know what, I'm a global data privacy officer for these countries and I don't approve your product. I don't want you to release your. Oh, why? I don't find a legitimate purpose for using these data. Oh, what does that mean? So every part of failure helped me realize it. And there were times that systems were talking about how to do it instead of why to do it. So then I realized, oh, I failed again. I focused a lot of how. I did not focus a lot on why. So my career transitions, my career has been maybe failures, but I think my successes were somewhere overcoming those failures to say, hey, you need to be consistent in doing something, and that's value driven.
There was so much there. I wrote down so much, India, but one of the things that stood out was this question of why are we still doing this, right? And the which kind of, almost prompted the curiosity into the technology, right? Why are we still doing it this way? Technology might be able to do it, help us do it better in a different way. But then you said something that really got me, relative to, over-indexing, everyone running around saying Gen AI is going to replace us, right? And that was kind of the fear portion of it. And then you said something really great, under-indexing on what it's going to do for us, right? And it's funny. I go back to I was at an event, I don't know, maybe at the end of 2024. It was a learning and development event with a bunch of chief learning officers and L&D executives. And my friend, I'm going to give her a plug here, Jenny Richmond, where the dinner conversation was about Gen AI in learning and development. And everyone's going around use cases, and it's really great. And Jenny says, this is great, but we're kind of getting away from what the folks that created, ChatGPT is what we were talking about at the time. Like the actual reason that it was created was for us to eliminate some manual tasks that really we shouldn't be doing anymore ourselves, to have more time either personally to be doing the things that we love and that give us energy, or personally, professionally, spending time really helping people in an empathetic way, and being around people and being ingrained in our community to be human and present to help that way, right? And I thought that when I heard you say that we're under indexing on what it's going to do for us, like that stood out, right? Because that's it, right? Like if we can get more efficient on the things that don't really need a whole bunch of our brain and our soul, we can lend those things to other places, right? And be much more impactful.
Correct. And one more thing HR does under indexing in this portion is we under index to state that AI is only for a data scientist or for engineers. It's not for us, right? We are non-tech folks. This has nothing to do with me. It has already caught us. So we will keep seeing the flywheel here. And that curiosity also was something that I had to handle about a 400,000 people data at some point in time to craft an analysis, right? And we had created surveys. And then at that point in time, my boss said, hey, why don't you give this to a data scientist? He can create an amazing word cloud out of this. That sparked the curiosity for me to say, oh my God, can we do this? Went back, learned what that tool is. So that we are self-sufficient in this, right? And then figured out I need to handle a bunch of data scientists and engineers as part of my HR business partner role. I need to hire product scientists. I need to hire product managers, understanding their world. And that's your mama's instinct, right? So when my daughter was 8 months in, I thought, let me become a data scientist. I started enrolling courses on data science and business analytics. And when she was 10 months out, I was still learning. But one, I committed, I learned, and I finished. So this portion of under indexing that it is only for engineers is also something that we need to change our vegan into.
Couldn't agree more, Cindy. And geez, I'm the furthest thing from an engineer in the world, and I because of you, I use Gen AI a ton, right? Off the side of my desk, I guess is the term, right? But I use it a ton personally. Geez, I got a 7-year-old and 2 5-year-olds. Bedtime stories, travel agent. Anytime that I'm traveling somewhere and my family's with me, where to stop to take care of everyone, right? What restaurants. I use it a lot personally. I use it for one of my guilty pleasures is I'm a big college football fan, and I'm in a college football fantasy league. And it's a pretty complex league, and I use it to create values for the players I'm going to draft. So I use it a ton, and I use it a lot professionally, really mostly around organization, scheduling, thinking about my day. Um, um, and again, I am not in HR, but I just want to pivot to the kind of the I don't want to say the final part of our conversation, but what I was most excited about, and again, selfishly, I know a lot of your background, Sandhya, but um, what really got you connected to the Boston HR Council was as we continued talking, I was fascinated with number one, how wide your remit is at Apexon, right? You do a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. And as you were coaching me and telling me how you were using Gen AI to streamline a lot of the things in those areas, I I laugh now as I'm thinking back on it. Like you were kind of speeding through some of the more 101 parts of it, right? In my head, I was like, whoa, hold on. I'm like, I don't think a lot of people know this 101 part, right? And as you explain it to me more, you know, my thought was, if you could talk more about this with the HR community, there's so many things of relevance here that people aren't doing, not because they don't want to, but because I wouldn't even say afraid, they're just the unknown, right? I don't know how to start. I've never been a technology person, right? Like, and that's almost like a barrier. But I said, if you wouldn't mind, presenting to the BHRC on just kind of your journey in Gen AI and how you've been able to turn it into something that's very functional and very part of your remit in how you approach the business, that'd be great. So, um, that led to, the BHRC virtual event last year, um, Gen AI and HR on a budget and in real time. And then after that, I mean, that was the most highly attended BHRC virtual event. I think we've had 97 or 98 of them over the last 6 years at this time. That was the most highly attended. I got the most feedback on it. People absolutely loved it and loved you, Cindy. I believe you actually did a couple of offsites to help HR teams, right, in this world. It was just really cool, and there was so much buzz and so many different connection points where people were like, "Oh, can I start here?" Or "Can I learn more about this?" Or "You told me you were doing this for the function." And then what happened was you then, which is I've been so fascinated and I think so cool, you then created, your playbook, right? The Gen AI in HR, my playbook that is really a thread in I'm not a great market social media guy, but it's a kind of a newsletter blogish type feel of kind of what you're doing and what you're thinking about in real time relative to Gen AI and HR. So it's this big flywheel, Cynthia, of someone that I think's the best at it, kind of just opening up a space for people to come ask you questions and learn and coach. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I know I said a lot there, but I want to talk about how you're feeling and what you're thinking about in that space right now.
Yeah. So I'll take this into three-part answer, right, Sean? So one, how am I doing it? And second is, what am I doing with it, right? Some application of how am I using AI as well, some practical applications. So to start with, when I began the conversation, I was talking about how I went back with the newspapers and start looking at financial terms, right? I'm going to borrow one of the quote here from my bosses to say earlier we used to buy newspapers and now we are buying tools so that we are trying to keep ourselves abreast to what the technology changes are. And that's where I started to learn by doing. So when I learned by doing, I figured out, I'm failing multiple times. I'm learning so much. And then I then figured out not just I need to stop with doing, the moment I share what I'm doing and people get to benefit from that and they ask me more critical questions. And because of those critical questions, I go back and revisit my doing to tweak it more. And that helps me stay on the learning curve, right? This has been my consistent mantra of doing this. One, of course, to give back to the community. And second is anytime that you give back what you're doing, you're also getting back how to do it better. And then fast forward, right? So we did a lot of sessions. So last year, amazing. We created cheat sheets for professionals. I went ahead, spoken in multiple offsites. There were pretty much solid pain points that people were looking at. Hey, I'm trying to automate this. I'm trying to do this, that. So I'll give you a quick example, right? So I have a colleague of mine who's a 65-year-old, and now someone goes and talk to her about GenAI tech, anything on the tools. She will just come outright and say, hey, I'm using Copilot for this. I'm using this for this. I'm using that for that. So the education is not just about uh, stopping us from doing anything. It's also exploring us to make a lot of things going ahead with it, right? And that's where, as human, we need to navigate that journey. So that's something that I've believed based on doing and sharing. And the second half of the portion, right, on the application of doing it, when we started speaking, when we started looking at how the present is and how the future is, I even made, and people keep asking you questions saying, oh, you're doing so much. And I think you don't have, I don't know, how do you do everything at 24 hours time frame, right? But to an honest answer, GenAI had made me much more efficient and a more effective person. And I'm well prepared to go into a conversation. And I'm well prepared with my table of things. And I'm well prepared how do I spend time with my daughter. And I don't negate with that, right? So this has given me a lot and lot more of bandwidth and lot more of thinking space and lot more of thinking partner who was never judged to say, hey, you thought this, but you can be better. And I never use it as a therapist. I'm only using it as a thinking partner, right there. So that's where I have custom GPTs, where I have a tone of voice. For example, I need to respond to emails, right? And all my Gmails get bogged down with multiple mails, multiple requests. People ask for, hey, can you mentor me? Can you look into my resume? Give me. And I'm a person, I want to give them that time. And I know I can't schedule time in multiple things. I have my day job. I need to do something else beyond this. So I've used technology effectively. At work, the efficient way of using it for me has been what has been the tone of my boss, right? What will they ask question if I send them a particular email? And what should I be looking at this particular audience, right? If I am talking to my CEO, is this the right way that I'm doing? Or should I be very cognizant of the fact what I'm doing in this, right? And the second portion, anything from a requirement standpoint or a system update standpoint that comes in, our vendor comes and talks a claim, right? I immediately first think about what are the Capterra reviews, what are the G2 reviews that is there, and how are people actually figuring out is there a problem? And I go back and ask a Perplexity or a ChatGPT or a Claude, it gives me the information. So I'm prepared. The point that we are trying to make here is HR professionals does not have to be a technologist. You can be a tech savvy. For you to be well prepared, this technology helps you to be prepared, right? And for that matter, I'm part of an hackathon today. It's just going to start another 15 minutes from now. And last year, if you would have asked me, how did I prepare for an hackathon to how am I preparing now? It's absolutely different. And I'm able to talk the language what my team wanted. And we are able to find a mid ground, right? So those are some of the quick wins that has happened for me. And these quick wins are also the external community. I'm reading a community newsletter outside. It's called Women Defining AI Community Newsletter. I need to publish a mid-month and an end-of-month newsletter. I've automated those newsletters for myself. I've looked into my tone of voice, looked into how the tone of voice for the community comes through, figured out what would require without having to have me spend 6 hours. Vis-a-vis, I'm still spending an hour or two, right? But I'm extremely confident by the way of things that I've set up now that I can just spin it around in an hour or so. It doesn't matter. So it has given me so much efficiency and make me feel so confident. And to answer to everyone, I'm not doing it all that in 24 hours, but it is making me do things in a right way at right time.
Yeah. That's so powerful, Cindy. And it's funny, it's ringing a bell. We jumped on a prep session and, I said, Cindy, have you listened to any Y people? And you say, yeah, I've definitely listened. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about the framework. And you said, I actually Gen AI, chat GPT, Y people, and it broke it down for me. It gave me a bunch of, kind of points on how the conversations usually go. I have kind of the cadence. So I think I'm good, Sean. And I said, wow, that's a first. That I went into a prep call and the person said that I've actually already been prepped. I was like, wow, I think we might be onto something here. I might be sending out just a GPT link to folks with some bullet points from the past episodes. But Cindy, I want to touch on a few of the things that you mentioned. For me, it's interesting because like everything else in life, everyone's at a different stage of their journey technology-wise, right? And I don't wanna spend too much time going back on what we talked about last August at the virtual, but I do wanna highlight for folks, for the audience here who wasn't a part of that, like, we touched on 4 or 5 different really specific use cases that you were not only were you streamlining your desk, but you were also streamlining a lot of your teammates' desk and giving them tools. The one that stands out mostly is around talent acquisition. Um, and we don't have to go into it too much, but I just remember coming away from that like, wow, how cool was it that Cindy was able to give her teammates something that really, um, that really shortened the time in that work, but also made that work more efficient. Like, geez, that's a pretty cool gift to give to a teammate, right? And so what I was thinking and want to ask you is when I think of, Gen AI and HR, my playbook, kind of your approach to sharing this information with others, right? You've always been so generous with your time and your thoughts. Like how are people approaching you for help? What kind of help are they asking for? And then just, a third piece, like if someone in the audience or listening to the podcast right now is interested in getting some help in this space, like tell us a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. So last year, when I think when we did this workshop, right? So we were very focused also on talent acquisition because at the end of the day, what comes out is, are you cost reducing and are you revenue incurring? Right. The first division in an HR that comes immediately out of our mind is, hey, can I do something in talent acquisition? Right. And talent acquisition, I always think that is the most exploited department. You have so many ATS to choose from. You have so many AI tools to choose from. And then we are at the crossroads where to do, right? So when we first started, even within our organizations for talent acquisition team, I wanted to give a due credit when people see that others are also using it. So I had one other junior person in talent acquisition team in our North America unit come with me for the workshop and show the team how is he using ChatGPT without having to have any privacy data, but asking to see how a job description can be curated or how could the match be generated, what it could help me with a Boolean search. I don't have to go and start generating keywords. How could I post few things? So the effort estimation earlier was if I would have taken 30 minutes to do some things on my own, now it takes me only 5 minutes. So we grew from there. So the conversations and people started asking me last year was, hey, we are in start of our journey. We have not used tools and now we wanted to get to explore or be aware of the tools, to now being to say that, hey, I've used ChatGPT. Hey, I know how to use Copilot. I've absolutely used Perplexity, and Perplexity has replaced my Google, right? And they're very confident to say, now I'm looking at next steps. So your next steps, what are your next steps, right? So you had your base journey, and I'm in my next step. How can you help me? So this is how people start asking me questions, which is varied from month on month. But do you still think that I'm getting more questions on how do I go next or how do I start? I would say people ask me more on how do I start still. So the adoption, the exploration and democratization of tools is still starting. Or using some tools for your presentation, how quick it can go, or some tools for report analysis is all in the second stage for you. But exploration, where do I start, is a starter for most of them.
That's interesting. That still is the question, right? How do I start? And I've been fascinated by the technology, Sandhya, but I've also been fascinated. I'm always more fascinated with people in general. I've been fascinated with people's, to your point, their adoption or non-adoption of the technology, right? And the reasons why, right? And so a question I have for you is, and not to take too much of a turn here, but what I think and what I feel and what comes out in a lot of these conversations is I think a lot of people are waiting for it to be packaged up in some enterprise software that's just gonna come and just be plopped onto their desktop, and it's gonna be like the solve all, right? You're just gonna kind of turn the switch on, and then the automating is gonna happen, right? And I think, I certainly know it, and you're an expert in it, but the whole thing's kinda more of a dial, right? Like, it's not an on and off switch, it's a dial on what you're using it for, how you're using it. How do you think about that dynamic, like, enterprise software that's gonna solve everything? And it's nothing against the software companies that are building things, but I see it much more of kind of a very specific thing that folks are using it for. Like, how do you think about those 2 dynamics, or that dynamic, I should say?
And this portion has two specific pointers, Sean. And one specific pointer is an individual adaptation to that, right? We always think our resistance has been, you know what, these tools are replacing my voice. This tool doesn't sound like me, all right? I'm losing it. But these tools are there to amplify your voice. And you are the person who can own your voice. And a lot of folks keep saying, oh, all the LinkedIn posts are very machine generated. And I don't see a lot of traction. The algorithm is messed up. And these are things that keeps coming in, right? Because now content is at the realm of the tools. Your content strategy is nothing. You go, you are able to figure out a neatly aligned content. And the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh, is this ChatGPT generated or is this Claude generated? So you start judging people, right? Because they are using. And what you're also doing is you're already delimiting people on not using those tools to say, hey, please don't start doing this, right? And the second portion comes in enterprise. We keep having tools, we keep buying tools, we keep saying, this tool will help you for this tool will help you for this. But what happens here is the why portion of this completely comes on the context of it. While I'm able to use this tool, why is this tool not able to give me this particular use case? And that's exactly where a generative AI, an AI, or a normal digital transformation comes in for you. And we have normalized digital transformation, by the way. Anything that goes through, immediately they say, oh, is it the GenAI use cases that we are trying to solve? No. So, automation, augmentation to wherever it is, right? HR has a larger context to it. This context will amplify your voice. This context will amplify your tools. This context will make you question both your voice and tools in a better way.
I love hearing you talk about it, Cindy, because I can really hear it. I can hear it in your voice and your soul, like the how much you believe and what it and how impactful you think that the technology is. So we're just coming up on time, but I want to ask one more question, then I want to put you on the spot real quick. So, Sandia, this will be a lot of folks will listen to this, and again, in my network, you're well known as the person who can help people really get going in Gen AI and HR. Um, how can folks reach out to you if they have questions, or if even how do I get started is their question? How can they reach out for you for a little bit of help? That I like to call it. I don't want to say informal, I don't want to discredit it, but it really is comfortable and conversational versus, anything else. How can folks get in touch with you?
Yeah. I think so. One way of doing it is I have an email ID now, which I've completely automated, right? Where it comes through and I'm able to get a task list for myself. So if someone has asked for help on AI, hey, this is what they've asked. Oh, someone has asked me to say they are already using, they want a review of their product. This is where I need to go. So I have an email for myself, so which I would share. And it's called Sandy's Notes on AI at gmail.com. So that's something that I would say people can reach out. And the second thing is, of course, LinkedIn as a platform. Feel free to reach out. I've still not figured out a LinkedIn automation algorithm for me, and I don't want to do so much. While I'm talking so much on technology, automation, etc., the response will come from me, right? So it's not an AI generated response. But at the same time, I'm also doing a session with Maven on 2nd of August. That's a free lightning session. I'm launching a cohort based course for HR professionals from folks who are in their college now. So anyone who's starting to start their career, thinking to start their career, to someone who's about 10, 15 years experience here. And if you're a CXO to say that, hey, I just want to come and refresh what I want to do, feel free. But this is not designed for a CXO level, but it is for your organization who are holding the meat of the organization, those 0 to 15 years folks. So lightning session is one, followed by a cohort-based approach on Maven is going to be the other one that they can continue to see. And they will always have my newsletters online, which is something amazing. And there is also one other call out that I would want to make in this audience, right? As part of my cohort this time in Maven, I'm planning to invite folks who are already doing a lot of cool stuff in AI. You don't necessarily have to be a leader, but you want to be part of my course. I give you 15 minutes time where you can come and show what you have done to them, to the audience, right? One, to a visibility of so many people who have signed up. And I'm so glad by the time I launched it yesterday till now, we are 75 and counting on the signups. This is something that I would want to see, not just for the lightning session, but if you want to be part of the cohort and the course, right? Feel free to let me know. You can be a guest speaker on the course. You can share what you have exactly done here in AI professionally, which will help the HR community. That's another way that I want to amplify more voices who are even the grassroots voices that they find in the organization, and we will make you heard.
That's great, Sandhya. And I'll put all of that information in the show notes so folks can access it. Last question. I know that you have to go. You're up against time right now, but rapid fire. I want you to say as many things, as many parts of the HR function that Gen AI helps you out with right now. Just rapid fire, as many as you can. Just so we can leave the audience with a little bit of a, oh my God, she's doing a lot with it. As many as you can think of.
Talent acquisition. Within the talent acquisition, multiple roles from a recruitment, talent acquisition leader to a vendor management, etc. Then you have your talent management, talent engagement. Again, your HRIS tools, technologies, systems, your workforce management group, your resource allocation, which is very specific to your IT organization, resourcing, skill matching, career navigations, career navigators, and you have your immigration, which is also a typical part of majority of the organization to look at how this heads on this, and all the way right. It's a baseline of people queries. So anything on people ops, anything to do with people, anything where you find people there, and you will find GenAI, which will amplify there.
That was a lot. Well, Sandhya, I am so glad that we were able to get together on Why People. You're a great friend. I think you're a great pioneer in the HR world. I know a lot of people are going to enjoy this conversation. I know a lot of folks are going to reach out to you, but thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning.
Thank you so much, Sean. This has been a pleasure to be part of this podcast, and we'll continue our conversation post the podcast too. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As always, I'm there to help you.
Thanks, Sam.